There's been a debate for 2 decades as to whether electromagnetic fields, or EMFs for short, impact human health. And the research suggests that they do. And there's many people out there who are extreme examples of EMF exposure causing human health issues. And those are people who suffer from electro hypersensitivity symptoms and issues. And there's diagnosis of it. Here's a paper talking about electro hypersensitivity and multiple chemical sensitivity, two similar but different diseases. And the electro hypersensitivity is related to EMFs. And so today I want to talk about EMF exposure and its impact on histamine, and how EMF driven histamine responses can drive electro hypersensitivity symptoms, but might also drive histamine issues that don't reach an EHS level, or maybe a mast cell syndrome or something. So there's a whole spectrum of histamine responses ranging from, yep, I'm a little itchy, to on one end, anaphylactic shock and allergy, right? Anaphylaxis, so you need an EpiPen, to on another end, you might have MCAS, or mast cell disorders, or mastocytosis, or EHS. And so we've got some papers that'll help us understand the connection between EMFs and histamine and other symptoms that people might have commonly that they're not relating to EMF exposure, or the impact of EMF on the histamine and the histamine-driven symptoms. So this first paper is from way back in 2000 in the journal Medical Hypotheses, and the title is "A Theoretical Model Based Upon Mast Cells and Histamine to Explain the Recently Proclaimed Sensitivity to Electric and/or Magnetic Fields in Humans." So back in 2000, the EHS, which stands for electro hypersensitivity, was a new issue, new diagnosis, because with the spread of internet and cell phones and all of that, we were having an explosion in technology that was new. And so potentially, if damage is happening, new diseases can show up. So it was fresh at this time, and new and unexplained and not fully understood. So here's a theoretical model put forth by these authors that over time has had more research behind it to support it. And we start with the first sentence here. So I'm going to read it to you because they do a good job of explaining it, and then I'll jump around to different studies and ideas for you to drive it home more. The relationship between exposure to EMFs, electromagnetic fields, and human health is more and more in focus. Again, this is 2000. So it's become more in focus with every year that we've had cell phones and Apple and Wi-Fi and 3G, 4G, 5G, and all of this stuff continuing to explode and engulf us. This is mainly because of the rapid increasing use of such EMFs within our modern society. Exposure to EMFs have been linked to different cancer forms, leukemia, brain tumors, neurological diseases, such as Alzheimer's, asthma and allergy, and recently the phenomena of electrosupersensitivity and screen dermatitis. There's an increasing number of reports about skin problems, as well as symptoms from internal organs such as the heart, in people exposed to video display terminals. These people suffer from subjective and objective skin and mucosa-related symptoms, such as itching, heat sensation, pain, redness, papules, and pustules. In severe cases, people cannot use video display terminals or artificial light at all, or be close to mobile telephones. Mast cells, when activated, release a spectrum of mediators, among them histamine, which is involved in a variety of biological effects with clinical relevance, such as allergies, itch, swelling, local redness, and many types of skin issues. From the results of recent studies, it is clear that EMFs affect mast cells and also dendritic cells, and may cause degranulation of these cells. And degranulation means they release their chemicals. So for example, mast cells would release histamine as one example, dendritic cells would release somatostatin as one example. The release of inflammatory substances such as histamine from mast cells in the skin results in local redness, swelling, itching, and pain, and the release of somatostatin from the dendritic cells may give rise to subjective sensations of ongoing inflammation and sensitivity to ordinary light. Mast cells are also present in the heart tissue, and their localization is of particular relevance to their function. Data from studies made on interactions of EMFs with the cardiac function have demonstrated the highly interesting changes are present in the heart after exposure to EMFs. One could speculate that the heart mast cells are responsible for these changes due to histamine release after exposure to EMFs. So this was back in 2000, and they're making the connection, just as a sidebar here to this last piece, they're making the connection of mast cells, of EMFs impacting mast cells, causing them to dump histamine in the heart. And so if we jump forward to 2011, this study entitled Histamine Blood Concentration in Ischemic Heart Disease Patients was published. And it's interesting. Let's dive into this. So in their abstract, they say, our results show that the histamine blood level was associated with different types of ischemic heart diseases. In healthy subjects, histamine level is rounded up to 45 plus or minus 1. So 43 to 46 would be a healthy blood histamine level. Okay. In different heart disease patients, histamine levels ranged from 84 to 96, and let's call it 116 to 128, depending on how severe the heart issue was. Our data suggests that histamine can be an additional parameter of heart ischemia, which is lack of oxygen, lack of blood supply, along with cardiac-specific enzymes, and may prove to be an excellent single prognostic marker for a multitude of ischemic heart diseases. So this paper is showing that high histamine contributes to heart disease, and the worse the heart disease, the higher the histamine levels. If we look at it right here on this graph, so you can see on the y-axis is histamine blood concentration. The x-axis is time in days, and the different shapes are the different heart issues. So if we look at this circular shape, that's the control shape. These are the healthy people. And so in the study period, from day 0 to 8, healthy people had consistent histamine levels in the normal range in the low 40s. Okay, if we look at stable coronary artery disease, okay, so coronary arteries are the arteries that supply the heart with blood. Stable coronary artery disease, the squares, those patients average a histamine level around 80, okay, double the normal range. Acute coronary syndrome, non-occlusive, is the open circle. They have higher histamine levels. And then acute coronary syndrome occlusive, so that one has blockage of the arteries, they have the highest histamine levels. Okay, so histamine concentration in the blood, specifically in the coronary arteries, is associated with severity of cardiac events in ischemic subtype. So that's very important, because this paper is showing 11 years later what this paper was suggesting, that mast cells and the release of histamine can impact cardiac symptoms and heart function. How might that happen? Okay, the process of atherosclerosis leads to cholesterol or lipids accumulating in the blood vessel wall, activating heart mast cells, which in turn cause an increase in coronary histamine concentration. Furthermore, atherosclerosis leads to narrowing of coronary arteries, thus compromising the flow of coronary blood, resulting in inadequate blood supply to the heart. Myocardial ischemia, or poor blood supply to the heart, and consequent low oxygen also promote histamine release from the mast cells. So this can be a vicious cycle. This can cause a significantly higher and sustained histamine blood concentration. Okay, so they're looking at it from a lipid perspective or a cholesterol perspective. This paper put forth the hypothesis that EMFs could also drive a similar mechanism. EMFs driving histamine degranulation, mast cell degranulation, histamine release, could result in similar symptoms, okay, the similar cascade. So going down, where are we being exposed to the EMFs? Well, everywhere. okay? Whether at home or at work, EMFs generated by domestic wiring, overhead high voltage power lines, and occupational equipment, as well as environmental sources such as radar, microwave communication systems, radio, television, broadcasting, cell phones, and the ubiquitous visual display terminals all contribute to an individual's more or less chronic exposure. And again, there's a spectrum of how we all react to it. You might feel like you have no symptoms, whereas some people have hypersensitivity. An increasing number of people are claiming that they have hypersensitivity to electricity. These patients suffer from skin as well as neurological symptoms when they are near electrical equipment, including visual display terminals, fluorescent light, especially high frequency fluorescent lights, mobile telephones, cell phones, television, or other electrical appliances. The most common complaints are headache, eye and general fatigue, sensory symptoms such as itching, stinging, pain, or burning sensation in the skin. So if EMFs are driving that histamine release can drive those symptoms. And if EMFs are affecting dendritic cells, that can lead to poor immune phenotype, or excuse me, an immune phenotype dominance. What does that mean? Well, I talk about it in my book, and I'll jump to a graphic from my book in a moment, but first I want to show you another study. So a dendritic cell, well, first now let's jump to the graphic in the book. Okay, so here we are looking at a graphic from my book, The Autoimmune Answer. You can find it on Amazon. This is in the introduction of the book where I'm explaining the immune system to you so you can understand autoimmunity better. But as you can see here, the dendritic cell is this little cloud shape here. And the dendritic cell is what's called an antigen presenting cell. You can see it's got this hand right here handing this antigen or this foreign thing, which might be a food, it might be a microbe, it might be pollen, it might be a toxin. It's something foreign to the body. It's handing it off to this naive T cell's hand right here. And so this handoff is how the innate immune system tells the adaptive immune system what's going on and tells this immature T helper cell what to grow up into or mature into. Should it mature into a teacher or a lawyer or a carpenter or a cook or whatever, okay? And so when this handoff happens, not only does the dendritic cell hand off this antigen to the T cell, but it also is going to release cytokines or chemicals to basically influence this naive T cell to grow up into something else. So you can see for this guy to mature into a Th1 cell, interleukin 12 is released. For it to mature into this, IL-4 is released. For this, IL-4 and TGF-beta. And so if EMFs are impacting the dendritic cell and the substances or cytokines and hormones that might release that impact this cell, EMFs can impact our immune system. And if we bias our immune system inappropriately, any of these directions, that can lead to issues. So does that happen? Yes, I'm going to show you a paper right now that shows that EMF exposure polarizes T helper cells towards a Th9 phenotype. And what does that mean? Well, in our histamine discussion, Th2 is known by lay people. What Th2 causes, lay people understand as the allergy response, okay? And you're familiar with allergies and histamine driving allergy symptoms, and we've talked about a bunch of them already on this call, how histamine can drive itching and redness and all that. Well, the Th9 response is Th2, but way more intense. So the Th9 response will also include histamine and mast cells and that type of response. So is there any evidence that EMFs can drive this response or this immune imbalance? Yes, let's go look at that. Here we are looking at the paper that shows T cell differentiation to T helper 9 phenotype is elevated by extremely low frequency electromagnetic fields. And this paper was published in 2019. So if we look at what they say globally 50 and 60 hertz electric power supplies are common, and appliances, power transmission lines, so power lines, and transforming stations radiate extremely low frequency EMFs. As the use of electrical and electronic equipment increases, people are increasingly exposed to extremely low frequency EMFs in their environments, including the workplace and home. Several studies have suggested that extremely low frequency EMFs can produce functional changes in biological systems. Okay, so low frequency EMFs can impact biology, can impact humans. Some studies, some epidemiological studies have reported associations between childhood leukemia and low frequency EMFs. There's been studies associating cell phone usage with brain tumors in children. And they talk about how the blood-brain barrier isn't fully developed, so the EMFs coming off the cell phones have a greater impact on little kid brains than on adult brains. So A, let's not get our kids' phones until they're driving, if we can help it. And B, if they're going to talk on them, let's not hold them up to their heads. Let's put it on speakerphone to get the phone as far away from us as possible to lower the strength of the electromagnetic field that is impacting us. And so up in the abstract, they tell us what happened. So owing to the development of information technology in the electronics industry and the increase in the use of electronic products, an increasing number of people are exposed to EMFs in daily life. There's been concern about how they impact the human body. We investigated the effect of extremely low frequency EMFs, such as those generated by household power sources, on the immune system. The differentiation of CD4 T cells, so T helper cells, into the Th9 phenotype was increased by exposure to the extremely low frequency EMFs. If we cultured Th9 immune cells that were exposed to EMF and mast cells together, they showed an increased expression of mast cell proteases and mast cell derived inflammatory cytokines such as histamine compared to growing non-EMF exposed cells and mast cells. Our results suggest that EMFs enhance the differentiation of T helper cells into the Th9 phenotype, resulting in mast cell activation and inflammation. And so here's a recent study, 2019, that is showing that the hypothesis back here in 2000 by these authors has more evidence behind it and stronger science behind it now. And this 2011 study also supported their hypothesis that, hey, perhaps the mast cells in the heart are impacted by EMFs, and here's a mechanism for how that might impact people. And so if you're having symptoms of histamine, mast cell disorder or too high histamine, and you're saying, hey, I eat a perfect diet, I don't eat histamine, or I'm not allergic to things, or I'm avoiding all my sensitivities, but I'm still having histamine type symptoms, maybe you need to investigate your EMF sensitivity and how exposed you are to EMFs on a day-to-day basis, because there's a whole spectrum of disorders related to how sensitive you are to EMFs. And the extreme case would be the electrohypersensitivity, and this paper goes into that, and we won't dive into that today, but this paper sets up, these authors lay out, hey, there's actual reliable test markers we can run to say, is this person more susceptible or expressing electrohypersensitivity? And those markers include common ones that we see: high sensitivity C-reactive protein, vitamin D, histamine, IgE, and these other ones are more specialized. But those are blood markers that, if we're suspecting EHS, or even if we're not suspecting it that extreme, but you're suspecting EMF is impacting you negatively from a biological standpoint, running those markers could help us put the pieces together for you. So what should you do? Actionable things you can do right now, today, to help lower your EMF exposures. Because let's face it, none of us are going to be able to completely avoid it, unless you're going to move to the mountains in a remote area that has terrible cell phone connection, right? One thing you can do, and I do personally every single night, is unplug your router in your house, unplug your Wi-Fi router. You don't need internet when you're sleeping. Okay, so if you're leaving it plugged in, you're just bathing yourself and your family in unnecessary EMFs all night long. Put your phone on airplane mode and leave it in the kitchen. Okay, you don't need your phone next to you in your bed. Buy an analog alarm clock if you need to wake up. I wear an analog Casio watch that beeps and vibrates and it wakes me up and there's no EMFs on my body. Okay, so you don't need your phone as your alarm clock because that's producing EMFs all night long unless you put it on airplane mode. But again, you know, if you want to be real safe, leave the airplane moded phone in the kitchen and use an analog watch or alarm clock. Those are two very important things you can do that you can do for free, and it's easy to do today. And you're not going to forget your router's unplugged because when you wake up, if your kids are trying to watch TV or you're trying to go on the internet, once you can't access it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I need to plug that in. So two easy things to do. Another thing would be don't wear your earbuds all day, every day. So the earbuds that aren't connected to a wire, the wired ones are bad enough, but the earbuds that are not connected to a wire and are Bluetooth all day long, you know, that's not good either. Okay, so I always laugh when I see these doctors that claim to be health focused and they're doing podcasts and interviews with their earbuds in, and it's like, guys, get a wired headset. You don't need to be baking in Bluetooth all day long while you're trying to tell people how to be healthy.